Welcome to Lit Wings. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Our today's topic is poetics, which was written by Aristotle, a Greek philosopher of classical period. His major works are Poetics, which deals with art of poetry, and Rhetoric, which deals with art of speaking. Poetics is actually an incomplete notes which contains 26 small chapters. There are few comparisons through which Aristotle defends poetry, and here is one of them. Let's see what Plato condemns about poetry and how Aristotle defends from his point of view. The first point is, according to Plato, art or poetry is twice removed from reality. He says poetry is imitation of nature which already exists, so it is artificial. Aristotle says that imitation is not artificial, it is a natural process. Child imitates, and through imitation it is learning, whereas poet is imitating for pleasure's sake. Poetry is something that is superficial, like painting, according to Plato. But Aristotle, he compares poetry with music, where like music, poetry also appeals inside as well as outside. Whenever you are sad and you are listening to a sad music, you feel that those lines or lyrics are written for you. The third point is, according to Plato, the function of poetry is to teach. But Aristotle says function of poetry is to teach as well as to please. It pleases both the poet and the reader. Last point is, Plato says poetry stirred emotions and suppressed logical thinking. Aristotle says that these emotions stirred by poetry are necessary to arouse catharsis, which is purification of soul. The second comparison is between history and poetry. Aristotle says history is something that recounts events in chronological order, but poetry is one that talks about what may happen in future. History is about mere facts, whereas poetry involves emotions and feelings. History is particular about place or persons it talks about. But poetry is universal. It deals with universal theme where it is common to everyone. So, poetry is more philosophical than history. Any form of work, it may be poetry, tragedy, comedy or epic, it differs by the way of expression. Object, what is expressed, medium, through which it is expressed, and mode, how it is expressed. Next is genres of literature. Tragedy and comedy came from dithyrambic hymns, the older version of poetry. Tragedy is said to be the stories of great heroes in adversity, like epic, whereas comedy is said to be making fun of private deeds without threatening personal life, like satire. Aristotle defines tragedy. Tragedy is imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude in language of artistic ornament through pity and fear, affecting proper purgation of emotions. Imitation of an action is mimesis, which is serious, complete, and of a certain length, that is unity of time, place, action, in language of artistic ornament, that is the style or the style of language used, whether it is simple or bombastic with metaphors or newly coined words, like that, which arouses pity and fear, spectacle, that affects proper purgation of emotions, which is the utmost aim of tragedy, the purification of soul. And next comes the 6 parts of tragedy. Aristotle says plot, character, thought, Diction, song, and spectacle are the 6 parts of tragedy, where plot is the most important and spectacle is the least important. Plot. Plot is the soul of tragedy. It should have a proper beginning, middle, and end. The order of events should be perfectly arranged in a way where if you remove a particular scene, the entire plot should be collapsed. It should be arranged in a perfect order. Plot has 2 types: simple plot, complex plot. A simple plot is one which does not have any spectacular element. It is a mere story with a single and continuous action. Complex plot. Complex plot uses peripeteia and anagnorisis, which gives a perfect tragedy. Parts of a plot. One is complication, another one is denouement. When the story or action begins, with the flow of incidents, complication happens. And here identity happens, which is the turning point, where the hero comes to know about the actual truth. And from there, denouement happens. That is the remaining part of story, and the story ends. Next is character. A tragic hero must be highly renowned with noble moral purpose. His misfortune should be due to some tragic flaw. A noble person's fall will arouse more pity and fear. 4 elements of a character. A character should be true to life, logically acceptable, good at heart, and he should be consistent throughout the end. Next is thought. The action of plot should be in such a way that it arouses emotional reactions from the audience. Diction. Diction is how the tragedy is uttered, the way of utterance, either in a simple or a bombastic language, like using linguistic ornaments, similes, metaphors, newly coined words, etc. Next is song, the medium that is used to imitate the meter or elements. Next is spectacle. Visual effects of unexpected situation attracts attention or disapproval. The spectacle is the one that connects audience with the play. Elements of tragedy. Hamartia, peripeteia, anagnorisis, suffering, finally catharsis. Hamartia is the tragic flaw by hero, which leads to peripeteia or reversal of fortune, which leads to anagnorisis, the recognition of what happened actually, the actual truth, which leads to suffering or the painful action on stage, which results in catharsis. That is, when the audience connect themselves with the hero, their emotions get relieved. The purification of soul happens. Kinds of recognition. Recognition or discovery of actual truth by hero can be depicted using different ways. One of them is using sign. A sign can be congenital or marks on body. Congenital means a hero may have a trait of his ancestors, like a hero may have a sharp nose like his grandfather. He may resemble his brother or sister who is somewhere else. Marks on body. He may have a scar, or he may possess a bracelet or a ring which belongs to his family. And usage of sign is artistic way of showing recognition. Whereas if a hero identifies himself without using external tokens, it is an inartistic way of showing recognition. The best discovery is the one that arises from natural situation. As the incident go on, the recognition should happen. Only then it will create surprise. Next is pity and fear. Tragic incidents should happen between near and dear ones, which arouses more pity. There are few situations which arouse pity and fear. First one is some horror deed done in ignorance and the bond of relationship is discovered later. Next, some tragic action is done consciously, where a hero has to sacrifice his own blood relation to save kids or some innocent people. Next, the best situation is some irreparable deed is going to happen through ignorance, but it is discovered before it is done. This is the best situation of arousing pity and fear. Next, classical unities: time, place, action. One principal story, action, that happens in a single location, place, within a single day, time, 24 hours, within 24 hours. This is the one that abides by classical unities, a best tragedy. Next is a classification between epic poetry and tragedy. Epic poetry is a lengthy poem without any limit, but tragedy ends within a day, within a single day, 24 hours. Epic poetry does not have song or spectacle, so there is no any spectacular elements, whereas tragedy uses song and spectacle to arouse pity and fear. Epic poetry uses multiple plots. Multiple plots can be written to show grandeur, whereas in tragedy only one plot is chosen to enact on stage. Epic poetry uses narration, probably heroic meter, whereas tragedy is normally spoken in iambic meter. Conclusion. To Aristotle, tragedy is the most superior among all the art forms of literature. A tragedy, besides having all the elements like plot, character, diction and thought, it has music and spectacle which produce effects which are concentrated within time limit. But in epic, it gets spreaded over a long time, gets elongated and the emotions are diluted. The tragedy attains perfect end by causing a relieving impact on audience, which is purgation of soul, attaining the utmost aim of tragedy. Please do like, share and subscribe to Litwings. Thanks for watching.